Welcome to a podcast called Talking Triathlon, where two blokes talk about triathlon as per the name. I don't normally do this introduction because normally it's done by Tim Ford, but he is away on a camp, as we mentioned last week. So I have roped in Andrew Horsfall-Turner, fresh from Ironman South Africa, to come. I say fresh. You wait till he talks. He doesn't sound very fresh. But we're going to have a
Not so
chat
fresh,
about
yeah.
all things that have been happening in triathlon this week. Andrew, thanks for joining me. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Yeah,
That's a
obviously, thanks for
lie.
having me on.
That's a
That's a
lie,
lie,
mate.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to apologize in advance that I sound a bit hoarse. Yeah, basically, I recovered really well after South Africa, and I was pretty happy with how I was going. And then, yeah, Monday just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I've kind of had this kind of like coldy, flu thing for a few days now. But yeah, I'm optimistic. It's 2.5 weeks to Ironman Texas. I can't really do much training between two Ironmans anyway, so I'm just looking at this as extra rest and recovery. So hopefully,
Excellent.
yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully I'll be fit in a few days' time.
Additional rest and recovery required. Please stop trying to train while you're ill and just focus on getting better, hydrating, eating green stuff, and resting, mate.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the key. It's probably one of the most frustrating things being an athlete, knowing that every day you go out and you do some sort of exercise, and then being sidelined is like the most frustrating thing because that's all you want to do. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. So, how's things other than being slightly sick? Are you all right?
Yeah, yeah, life's pretty good. Yeah, as I said, had a nice time out in South Africa for the race. Um, that's probably the highlight of the last few weeks for me. Having a solid kind of first race to the year after a pretty bad end to the last season. So yeah, things are looking up.
Yeah, fair enough. Take me through it then, mate. Well, before we do that, you're listening to Talking Triathlon, which is a weekly podcast. We have a um, Patreon group at patreon.com/ talking triathlon. If you want to follow Tim on Instagram, he's at tford14 on Insta, and I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram. Andrew, what's your Instagram handle?
Andrew underscore H underscore T.
You can also follow that man. And we have, if you join the Patreon group, then you get all the added extras. You get the monthly bonus episode and you get added to the WhatsApp group, which is always entertaining. And if you've got any comments or criticisms or anything you want to talk to us about, then put a comment on the YouTube video because that is where we're most likely to see it and respond, unless you're in the Patreon group, in which case you can chat to us anytime you want. Now that all out the way, how are you doing, mate? South Africa, take me through it. What happened out there?
Yeah, no, it was good. I guess on the surface level, it looks like a an average to okay result, and it probably is and was. But as I said, I had a pretty poor end to the last season. So I was really looking for just like a bit of a line in the sand, something to show that um the training, because I changed coaches over the winter, so to show that the training was moving in the right direction, was obviously one of the key things for me. And yeah, overall I finished 13th, I think, on the day. But first big pro series Ironman of the year. 60 pro men, I think, on the start line. So yeah, no, solid result. I was front group of four out the water, me
I
and
mean,
three
I would be
Olympians.
disappointed if you weren't in the front group, let alone first out the water. But what were you? You were third out the water, were you?
I think third, yeah, it was a
Yeah.
really interesting one because obviously I was with Martin Van Riel, um Jonas, oh my God,
Schomburg.
Schomburg,
Yeah, yeah.
say his name right.
Yeah. Jimmy
And
Sprint
Jamie,
out of T2.
yeah, and Jamie Riddle. And I know they're all good or great swimmers, so I didn't feel like I needed to push the pace, which was really nice. So for once, I was being tactical and just sitting at the back. And I kind of had this realization after the first loop that, you know, there was four of us in that lead group, and three of those people had been to the Olympics for triathlon, and I was not one of those. So that's always a fun realization mid swim.
When you're sitting at the back of a group like that, I mean, for mere mortals like us, we would be on the edge of what we can possibly handle to even try and stay with them for a few seconds. How hard are you having to work in that moment? Can you cruise at the back of a group like that, or are you having to put in put in some heavy turns and digs to stay there.
Yeah, I definitely had to stay focused, and I definitely had to accelerate a few times. But and I probably I don't want us to sound like arrogant in any way, but it was probably one of the easiest Ironman swims I've ever had. Because traditionally I like to go to the front or try and break away or try and push the pace myself.
Yeah,
So for once, I wasn't trying to dictate the pace. I was just following. So I was able to like
bonding.
lengthen out the stroke, do what was necessary to be there, but not have to like force it. So I probably would say it's one of the easiest Ironman swims I've ever done. Um, and I guess that just shows the benefits of being in the draft because I don't know the exact percentage savings, but I reckon you're saving anywhere between 15-20% of your energy sitting third or fourth in that line. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, it was a nice position to be in and kind of just set up the rest of the day quite nicely for me because that had pulled me away from, I guess, the chaos, the messy
Was it
group.
choppy? What
Oh,
was the?
mate.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It didn't look choppy online, or even if you looked out to see it, didn't look choppy. But when you were in there, it was that really weird chop that's like super small but really quick.
yeah, aggressive,
So
like you're being slapped in
yeah,
the face constantly.
it's like every time you turn your head to sight or to breathe, you just basically get slapped.
Yeah,
Um, which I think made it a really hard and honest swim, and there was some decent
cold
currents
as
in
well,
there.
wasn't it?
Pretty cold, so like 15, 16 degrees.
Yeah,
But like we swam 50 minutes and the effort we put in, or the effort I guess the leaders were putting in, I think on a good condition day, there's no difference between a 44-minute swim somewhere else and a 50-minute swim in South Africa. So I think that just shows like how hard the conditions really were.
yeah, yeah. And how did you feel jogging into T1?
Yeah, good. I was again optimistic that I would have some company on the bike, but it really didn't it really didn't pan out very well. We had Jamie Riddle
He
tried to
fucked
cut
off
the
in the wrong
corner.
direction, didn't he?
We tried to cut the transition zone. So the transition zone was quite a long run, and he probably tried to cut 150 meters out of the run. So he did that and then and got sent back to rerun that loop. Um, I jumped on the bike in second behind Jonas, and he said to a guy who I know quite well, Josh Lewis, afterwards that he basically did the first 45 minutes at 370 watts. So I was pushing, say, 330 for the first half hour, 45 minutes. And I was kind of wondering why this guy was kind of just like disappearing into the distance. But when you hear how much power he's pushing, you're like, yeah, fair enough. And I was quite happy to see him go because I had Martin Van Riel behind me, Jamie Riddle behind that, and then you had people like Magnus and just loads of great athletes just behind you. So I knew that there was going to be people bridging up to me. So there was going to be opportunity to potentially
Yeah,
ride with people.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Tuck onto the back of Magnus and hang on for dear life, eh?
well, and actually, one of the best tactical decisions I think I made all day was not doing that.
Yeah, I
So,
concur.
so Magnus caught me at about an hour, I reckon, about an hour, 55 minutes or so into the bike. Um, and he came past and he was drilling it, and I was really happy with my power at that point. I was pushing over 300 watts. So like my normalized at that point was like say 315, 320. Um, I was really happy. Felt legs felt great, and I was moving really well. So I kind of just felt like going or even trying to follow him for more than like a minute was kind of silly. So
Mm,
I did do that standard thing where I kind of accelerated a little bit up to the draft zone just to see what it felt like. And I was seeing 340, 350, and I was like, well, that's not tactically speaking for me, that's not in my physical wheelhouse at the moment. Whereas Magnus was probably pushing 400 watts or so because he knows that he doesn't want to take anyone with him. So he's actively trying to drop me, and I actively don't want to go that hard. So it's kind
yeah,
of like a,
yeah. I mean, you say it's the best tactical decision you made all day.
oh,
I
100%.
disagree. I think it was just the decision, and had you
The
decided to go with him, it would have been the worst tactical decision you'd ever made.
yes, yes.
Yeah, that's the way I look at
Because
these things.
the British athlete who I know quite well, Josh Lewis, he actually opted for the the trying to chase Magnus for a bit.
Hmm.
And Josh is a phenomenal athlete, massive bike power, really fast on a bike, but that came back to bite him because I caught him by the end of the first lap. He flew past me with Magnus. I caught him by the end of the first lap, and then on the second lap, I ended up dropping him. So I think he optimistically thought maybe a ticket to the front of the race was Magnus, and he probably was correct because Magnus made it to the front of the race and made it way beyond that. Um, but I think there's always like that kind of, I think sometimes people underappreciate how good a cyclist Magnus really is until you're riding, I say next to him, you're riding behind him, and you see the power in your power meter, kind of how smooth he's looking and just how easily he can drop anyone. If he wants to drop someone, he drops them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was tracking furiously as you were racing, and you were holding fourth place. I mean, the gap was stretching out. The three at the front were making their way away, and there was a gap stretching out. But you seemed relatively consistent and comfortable in fourth.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think after the first sort of like lap or so, I'd realized that I was riding really well and I was really in control and I was actually pulling away from people behind me. I knew the front was going out a little bit, but that was kind of, as I said earlier, that was maybe tactically not my race. Like I think a really immature version of me would have just completely killed myself to try and go with that. And again, that would have been the wrong decision for me. But I was obviously looking for that top 5 to 10 as like a really good performance.
Mm.
Um, so sitting in fourth, feeling great, feeling smooth. I was, yeah, just really happy and really content with the power I was pushing, the speed I was seeing, and also just how well placed I was in the race. Like I was expecting people like Jamie Riddle and stuff to catch me, and they never caught me on the bike. So yeah, I basically rolled that all the way back into T2. I was 14 minutes down on Magnus,
Yeah, about that.
another like 6 or 7 to Jonas and Martin Van Riel. Um, and then I think I had about a 4 minute lead then on everyone behind me. There was a small group. Um,
Solo play. Love it, mate.
yeah, it was so funny because it's one of the only races I've done since Ironman Wales in 2022 where I didn't get a draft. I had a 30-second draft off Magnus and maybe a minute or two off Martin as he came past me early in the race. But it was a completely solo bike, and I think I kind of liked that. I kind of love the kind of like everything you push is all yours, and you have to be as aero as you want to be. Like you're trying to go as quick as you can, whereas like some races do just become a bit of a uh yeah, just a roll around in a group, and for me that just doesn't feel like racing.
No, looking at those pictures of you on the bike, you're looking decidedly aero. You're looking a lot more aero than you used to.
Actively trying to work on it for sure. Yeah.
How was your nutrition on the day?
So nutrition was good. I think obviously if we chat about the run in a second, I think that's where nutrition is probably something that I'm going to make a quick change going into South Africa
Yeah,
into Texas, sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Um I think I hit my carb goals, but I think I under liquid hydrated. So I wasn't necessarily like massively dehydrated. But I just think I got like a slight lack of fluid into the system. And then as a result of that, I don't think I was digesting the carbs as well because they were just a bit too, what's the term? Concentrated. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I think that's one of the things that I'm going to try and change is just about trying to increase that fluid amount on the bike. Try and make sure the absorption of the carbs is a little bit better. And I think that's probably one of the things that potentially can unlock the run a little bit more.
And what was it about the run? Because you set off on the run, and again, I was tracking, and you were holding fourth place for a considerable amount of time, but then it kind of the wheels came off a little bit, eh?
Yeah, and I've started running, and I guess like again, people either like it or they don't. But I started running with power recently with my new coach, um, and he basically prescribed me a race power. Um, and actually, what I was doing for the first, say, like lap and a half or so was I was just really sticking to what the coach had told me to do. Um, Sam Proctor, who's my coach. And I felt like I was holding myself back, which was a really nice feeling because I felt like I could run harder if I wanted to. Um, but I was kind of trying to be patient because I thought basically everyone falls apart at the end of a marathon in an Ironman. And if I hold patient and I hold strong, then, the goal was to run under 250. And if I'd run under 250, I would have been fifth place and got a knee slot.
Yeah.
So
And
what
that's what we were
happened
after,
was,
right?
yeah, that's exactly so. And I think what actually happened was exactly that. Everyone blew up. But what also happened was that I stopped absorbing my nutrition. My stomach gave up on me, and then also as a result of that, my quads gave up on me. They started to cramp, and
Yeah.
anyone who's done an Ironman knows as soon as the body starts kind of saying "fuck you," you're screwed.
As soon as you get that first cramp, it's a managed decline from that point, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So the last hour or so of the race was pretty painful for me, mentally and physically. But I was still really positive when I got to the finish line. I was still really positive because I saw, sorry, in that race so many things that I was doing that I wanted to do but couldn't do last year just because of I don't know, fatigue or whatever it was. But it just kind of gave me that positivity that like, right, I can ride a bike really fast still. Um, I can run the pace I need or the pace required to be super competitive and potentially, qualifying for world championship slots. I've just got to figure out that last, 15%. And, I think some people find it, or not get lucky. Some people, I say, master Ironman really easily. And I think some people do take time. And I think I'm unfortunately in that second boat of taking time to try and master it. But for an athlete, that just motivates me to work harder.
Yeah, I mean, look, we had a discussion almost immediately after the race. It can't have been long. We had a chat on the phone, didn't we? And you know, you the end of last year, you had some races that didn't go particularly well. And you would blow up on that run, and then you would capitulate down through the field, and you'd end up really struggling. I think this is a marked improvement on that. You know,
Oh yeah, massively,
you're
yeah.
not going backwards. You're finishing, was it 13th?
13th, and yeah, and I think, and that's where it says like on the surface of it, it looks like a bang average result, and it potentially is a bang average result. But for me, it was like, right, it's a step in the right direction in terms of the process, but also in terms of the gutting it out and seeing it through kind of aspect of it as well.
Mhm.
Because and this is not to shit on anyone because I've DNF'd multiple races in the last few years. But the DNF rate was huge in South Africa, for multiple reasons, but the conditions were brutal. The swim was hard, choppy. There was 30-mile-an-hour headwinds on the bike uphill, so you were basically going 20k an hour.
Brilliant.
Um, and then the run got super humid and hot. It was like 24, 25 degrees and like 80% humidity. So I think there's a lot to say for just kind of having the mental fortitude for, seeing it out. And it's obviously easier when you're having a decent day to that point. But I guess like the DNF rate just kind of highlights how easy it is to pull the plug when things aren't going perfectly.
Yeah, and it gets in your head, doesn't it? You
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
yeah, for sure.
it's all too easy to walk to the side of the road.
Yeah, yeah, and I think as well it's easy to justify in the moment. But I would much rather, within reason, crawl across the finish line than and then, have to justify it to myself that I pulled out because I was being mentally weak.
Yeah, no, no, mate, you did well. Very proud of you. Good work. Good work. And obviously, Martin Van Riel had some GI issues as well, didn't he? He'd got food poisoning or something before the race.
Yes, see, he
Had some
got food
issues
poisoning.
leaving.
There was a lot of little things going around, but
Yeah, there's definitely
ultimately,
been stuff going around. A weird little bug thing's been happening, I reckon.
yeah, and I think also you just had to be a little bit careful because, um, like instantly when I got there, like I went out for food and you got given a glass with like ice in, and like, when you're in different countries, I'm always a bit funny about drinking tap water. Even,
Fucking hey.
even if I go to like Spain or something, I'll always drink bottled water.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think it's easy to forget that you go out to a restaurant and you order a drink and it comes with ice. And I think it's, little decisions like that, like make sure you don't drink the ice because it's probably
Yeah,
from the
and
dirty
what's the
tap
salad
water.
been washed in, and
Exactly,
how
yeah.
long's that buffet been sitting there, and all this stuff, all these
Well,
things.
I was being, I guess, because I saw Martin ill earlier in the week, I was being a little bit, I'd say, over cautious, but I think you can never be too cautious. Like I
Wandering
was
around your
washing
alcohol
sat.
gel bottle, eh?
Well, no, I was washing salad with bottled water.
Good work.
But hey, I was doing all I could not to get sick, and so hey,
Yeah, yeah. No, good race though. In all told, did you have a good experience out there?
loved it, mate. Yeah, anyone who
Nice.
hasn't done the race out there or hasn't been to Port Elizabeth, yeah, I'd highly recommend it. I think they really get behind it. Yeah, I potentially I've already mentally said to myself that I'd love to go back and give it another crack. So
And now you're rolling into Ironman Texas, which is the 26th of April, which is the reason you're not coming to my 40th birthday party in London. But
yeah, yeah.
there we go. So, how are you feeling about Texas? Obviously, you're a bit sick at the moment. We will assume that has passed. What's the thoughts going into Texas?
Yeah, so the main reason behind getting two races under the belt was a little bit tactically because I've got baby number two on the way in May. So
Exciting times.
it was
Little
a little
baby
bit
James.
little junior. So it was a little bit tactical from the sense of just trying to get two races out the way. Then I could really focus on the birth of the child and then like not have to worry about racing for a couple of months.
Yeah.
What I was quite excited about was I've never really tested myself to see how I could back up races in terms of full distance races, like in close proximity. So and then when speaking to my coach about it, it kind of made sense that like you got really fit, you tapered well, you raced well, South Africa, and then we kind of just like maintain and tick over into Texas. We don't really try to train, which is why I'm not feeling too stressed at the moment about being sick because I think
Because you
I
don't
don't.
feel like you're missing training.
Yeah, I don't feel like, if Texas was the first race of the year, I feel like this week would be the big week, before you really start your taper.
Yeah.
Um, so I kind of feel like fortunate that I've done South Africa because I'm like, well, that was a big day out, and my body's not going to forget that. It was only a week and a bit ago. Um, so I'm focusing now on just trying to get healthy and then hopefully get a week of, decent training in next week and then just, yeah, recover and go again. And I think the dynamics in Texas are going to be a little bit different. I definitely will be riding with other people in packs. Potentially I can push less power. Um, I think for me still, like if I can, regardless of finishing positions, if I can have a front pack or lead out the swim, have a decent bike leg, and then run a progressively better marathon than I did in South Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, I would feel like,
Without those nutrition issues, without that absorption
yes,
issue, get to the end of the marathon knowing you had the best marathon you could have on that day.
yes. And I think for me, then that's a step in the right direction again. Where that will put me is so hard to tell because there's
Least slot in
literally,
it.
well, there's only five, which is the shocking thing when you've got
The fucking
set.
big start
So
list.
I think there's seven of the top 10 from Kona are racing, plus three Norwegians. And then you then add people like Matt Hansen, Trevor Foley, Chris Leiferman,
Patrick
Ben
Lang, Rudy
Knut,
von Berg, Gustav Eden, Christian Blumenfeld, Leon Chevalier, Matthew Marquardt, Christian Hogenhard, Matt Hansen, Chris Lefferman, Ben Canute, Daniel Beckergaard, Cam Worth. Who else we got here? Casper Storms, Andres Salzberg, um, other
Kasper
names that are
Stepniak's
jumping out
great, the
to me.
Polish athlete. He came
Yeah,
second at Florida a couple
Andrew
of years ago.
Horsfall-Turner. Who else is on this list? Yeah, there's loads of people racing, and there's some big names, so it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. But I mean, the objective has to be there or thereabouts, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think if I can set myself up similar to how I did in South Africa and put myself in a fighting position come the end of the bike, I think that's all I can really ask for. at this stage in the season, and ultimately trying to pick up some good pro series points. And there's kind of like loads of facets to, having a decent day out. Um, the ambitious goal would be to get a knee slot, um, because I think it's possible, but it's definitely going to be difficult in that standard of field. So I think, you'd look at that field and there's potentially 20, 25 people that could get a knee slot, and there's only five. So it's like it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. But I'm looking forward to
Lead out the swim, break away on the bike,
it.
hold the lead on the run.
Just jog the marathon,
Just jog
hold
the
off
marathon.
Patrick.
Having built that lead on the bike, jog the
Oh
marathon.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So let's talk about other things in triathlon, shall we?
Let's do it.
Have you heard that the T100 Fréjus has moved date from where it was in June, I believe, to now being at the end of August on the 30th, 31st on the French Riviera in Saint-Raphael-Fréjus.
I did see that. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you reckon to that, mate?
Um, I guess my first thought was just like it must have been because they're partnering with World Triathlon with I think they're running, is it a World Cup they're running the same weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be the first time the T100 Tour and WTCS will take place in the same venue on the same weekend, as well as the first series race to be held in France since the competition format was introduced in 2009. So, yes, there's going to be a WTCS race and the T100 happening on the same weekend. So, it's going to be an interesting festival of triathlon. There's going to be a
Yeah,
lot
yeah, for
going on.
sure.
It's going to be an exciting weekend. I mean, if you're down there as a spectator or a participant, there's going to be a lot to see, a lot to do, a lot to watch. I just hope you're not an age grouper who registered for the event a few months ago, bought your flights, bought your accommodation, didn't get refundable accommodation, and now are
Yes.
in a bit scuppered. Because it does say in the email you can contact the T100 about your options if you can't do that race weekend that they've changed it to, but that will simply be your race fee that will either
Yeah.
be, I assume, refunded or maybe you can transfer to a different race. If you've booked your flights and accommodation and it's not refundable, you might be a little bit pissed, eh?
I just think, yeah, I think that's the frustration with a lot of what the T100 have done in the last couple of years. Is just obviously they've been dictated by, I don't know if it's World Triathlon or if it's the actual host organizer of the local event. Um, but it doesn't it from a perspective of athletes, and especially because they've gone down the route of, age group athletes and participation. It's really, really frustrating to have things move when they're June's only like 2 months away, isn't it?
Yeah,
So for someone to suddenly turn around and say, well, actually, you're not racing in 8 weeks' time, you're racing in 16 weeks' time,
yeah,
you know, even to take, yeah, obviously you mentioned the accommodation and flights, that's a monetary thing, but I think even just from a training and scheduling thing, like that's, if you're feeling like your fitness is really good and you're really excited to do this race, and then someone says
yeah.
you got to tick over for another 8 weeks. It's like, what?
Yeah. I mean, you may have been looking to from I hadn't really thought about it from a training perspective for some reason. But yeah, from a coach's eye, you might have been looking to peak in June for Fred at your T100 race, then have a little bit of a maintenance over the summer and then peak again for your Nice Ironman slot later in the year. And
Oh
now
yeah.
Fred has become more of a, if you're going to race it 2 weeks before Nice, and you're racing Nice as well, either as a pro or an age grouper. But you're going to have to use Frejus as a bit of a glass cranking sort of warm up.
Yeah, and it's kind of goes down that route of like how much are how much are T100 trying to go against the big dogs and trying to program their
Us
events a little bit.
go against us.
Well, the Ironman,
Ah, you mean those big dogs?
the people that have got the monopoly of the especially the age group system. Um, I think it's difficult because they are trying to tactically schedule events now to try and compete, which is, I think, again, is a good thing for the sport. Um, yeah, the thing for me is like clarity. If they come out now and say, this is our schedule for 2026, these are the dates, these are the locations. I would have so much more respect than what they've currently been doing, which for me is just a little bit scattered.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give me much. If I was an age grouper trying to enter a race, it wouldn't give me much. I would be a bit fearful of putting my money down and buying flights, if you know what I mean.
Like take away all of that. I'm super happy that it's going to be in that on that date. I'm pleased there's a WTCS race associated with it. I think it'll be a really exciting weekend for the sport. I think great. And, if you're an age grouper who's qualified for Fréjus and Nice, you might go and have a 2 week holiday, race one, race another. Have a bit of time off in the middle. Why not? But yeah, the only thing is this whole like, oh man, come on, it's 2 months away and now the date's changed. People are super into this sport. Those that are into it and do it are super into it and they super do it. And they, they,
Yeah,
they will design their year. They'll have planned their year. They'll have planned their training, their schedule, their coaching. Everything will be meticulously laid out for them. And then suddenly things change. And I can imagine there are some frustrated people out there. I'm not one of them.
yeah.
Although I'm racing Frejus, I
I,
um,
I,
I
I
hadn't booked
do
anything
wonder
yet.
though.
I'm disorganized.
I, I do wonder though, and I don't know if you know the answer to it, but I do wonder how much the move in date might actually be a beneficial thing for them as well, because I don't know if they'd sold out yet, but potentially moving it to a summer holiday might increase entries. I don't know. Maybe they were looking for
Yeah,
a way to fill up the age
anecdotally,
group
I know
race.
one person who I've already spoken to since this date change who's now said I can now race this because it's in the school summer holidays. And
Fair. Yeah.
so that's just one example, though.
So it might have been a tactical decision because they didn't have enough, or the age group race wasn't very full, so they thought that's another good reason to move the date, I guess.
Yeah, it could well be. It's going to be stunning. What a beautiful past
Oh
part of
yeah.
the coastline.
You know,
I
we can get annoyed about the date, but yeah, what a place to do a race.
What do you reckon for a bike course along the coast there? Do you think road bike or TT for an age grouper? For someone like me, obviously pros will be
Ooh,
riding TTs.
how much elevation is it gonna have?
I've requested the profile today, but they won't send it to me yet 'cause it's not public knowledge. But
Oh,
um, but yeah, I mean it's going to be undulating to say the least, I think.
TT bike most of the time, but yeah, if it's, I guess in 80K, if it's more than 1,000, 1,200 meters of gain, maybe a road bike might be better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was going to borrow that heavy old felt of yours, but I
You're
think
welcome.
think it might be a little bit lumpy that one for that monster. Yeah, anyway, so that has changed. So let's talk about some racing that has happened rather than some racing that is yet to happen. You are an aficionado of the sport, so I assuming you were paying attention across this rather packed weekend we just had. Which race should we talk about first? Oceanside Singapore or Super Tri E?
Ooh, let's start with Super Tri E.
All right. This out of the three races is the only one I didn't pay a huge amount of attention to. Did you watch it?
I also did not pay a huge amount of attention.
Awesome.
I I do I think I think the problem with this race for me was that, and I put my excuses out now. My sister got married. I had a busy weekend, so I wasn't super attentive overall.
Yeah.
But you're chucking this super tri race on a weekend where there's three, as in I talk about Singapore as two races, but there's three races that are really going to captivate the triathlon audience already,
Yeah.
and it kind of felt like one too many to really keep up with.
Yes, I felt that as well. And people invest in Singapore, you've got two races over 2 days, which is quite an investment in time. Oceanside, you've got if you're gonna watch that Ironman broadcast, that's an investment in sanity, let alone
Mental
time.
sanity.
Yeah, yeah. So by the time Super Try you roll around, you're a little burnt out, which is a real shame because I think the T100 broadcast is excellent. I think their commentary team did a really good job. I think the Ironman broadcast is fucked beyond belief.
Mm.
But I think out of all of them, the commentary at the Super Try with Will McCloy is absolutely gold standard. It's top notch. It's some of the best triathlon commentary you can get, which is a real shame that I didn't get the chance to watch it. But The results were as follows. Cassandra Grande won the women's race ahead of Beth Potter and Julie Bochler from Germany. And the men's race, it was Maxine Huber-Musburger from France. So that's probably not how you pronounce it.
It
Um,
sounded German, yeah.
yeah, I sounded more German then, didn't I? Chase McQueen from the US and Michael Brudziak from Poland in third. Um, I want to mention Johnny Brownlee. He came sixth, and I thought that was quite good there or thereabouts for the old boy.
Yeah, in the mix. I know he's doing I think he's doing Challenge Gran Canaria in a few weeks' time. So he's definitely dabbling in multiple disciplines and
Yeah, yeah,
distances. So
dabbling. What do you think about his status in the sport right now? Because Tim was saying last week, and I was concurring, he's kind of gone a little bit quiet, isn't he? He doesn't sort of, he floats along, he pops up sometimes, then he floats along. What do you think of Johnny
yeah.
Brownlee and
Well,
long
I
course?
think
Is it happening?
personally, like he obviously wasn't selected for Paris Olympics, and I think that might have been the opportunity for him to go fully invest in long distance. So I'm not really sure what his intentions are. Like, is he holding out for the next Olympics in 3 years, well, 3.5 years time?
Do you think he's got
Does he?
another Olympic cycle in him?
How old is he? 30, he must be 35,
Yeah, he's
36.
younger than me. So, yeah, he must be 35. Let me talk amongst yourselves. Let me
So
find
yeah,
out.
um, I do wonder if he's
34, mate.
just maybe 34, okay. So maybe he has got another Olympics in him, or he feels like he's got another opportunity to go to the Olympics.
Yeah,
So,
maybe. I mean, he's 35 in about 2 weeks. So, 2.5 weeks. So, so yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that develops. And so, yeah, I would say to anybody out there, if you haven't watched Super Try E, give it a go because it is fantastic. I mean, compared to that, the T100 T1 race they did, I really enjoyed that because
yes,
they had the pool in the middle and then the racing around the track it's a different kind of racing because at the Super Try T1 they have the bikes on the velodrome, don't they? And then they run around it. At Super Try E, they have the bikes on the machines and then kind of like the is it the
like
running machines that you have.
self-propelled, yeah,
Self-propelled running
self-propelled,
machines, yeah.
yeah.
I think it's really exciting. I love it. I love watching the little avatars run around. I think it's a great sport and it's really good for triathlon, these different angles that we're taking. Where should we
What
go
I quite
next?
like about the
Oh, carry on.
Oh, sorry,
Carry on.
Karen.
No, no.
I was gonna say what I do like about the Super Try E is that it seems like it's a lot of suffering. So like because it's especially because the cameras are close up, you can really see, especially on the turbos on the bike element of it, you can really see the suffering in their face.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the difference between that T1 where they were going around the track is that the bike did become a bit of a nothingness. So they would swim really hard, kind of spin round together and then run really hard. Whereas I think in that Super Tri E, it's full gas from gun to tape.
Agreed.
Um,
Yeah, I
and I
think you're
think,
right there.
oh, it's
Riding
suffering
around a perfectly smooth velodrome in a group is going to be easier than pounding out watts on Zwift on one of those turbo trainer type things.
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Where should we go next?
I
I
think
want
we
to talk
jumped
about
straight.
Oceanside.
Oh yeah, let's go there. Let's go to Oceanside.
All right. Now, this is a race that we both paid attention to. Um, should we do the women's side first? On the women's race, it was Paula Finley from Canada who took the win ahead of Jackie Herring, ahead of Danielle Lewis. Did you watch the women's race?
Again, I was at a wedding, but I watched the Ironman do a really good like 45-minute review.
Yeah,
So I've watched that along with closely following the tracker and then also watching all the reels and stuff that get spat out on Instagram. So I was watching the race, if you know what I mean.
fair enough. And what was
Uh,
it on the women's side that jumped out at you?
just how not that how like obviously first off, Paula Finley obviously had a great race to win that. Um, she was meant to be in Singapore. She had some visa issues that
Visa
she had to
issues, yeah.
yeah. So
Something about if you're applying for a green card, you're not allowed to leave the country during the process or
yes,
something like that.
yeah. So it was nice. Well, I
Petrifying
guess
place.
nice, but T100 obviously allowed her to race, which is good, I guess, for us as spectators.
Yeah.
But the thing that jumped out for me was just Jackie Harring just really giving it to her. I think she brought it back on the bike, and they were. I think everyone kind of thought when Paula hit the front of the race on the bike that she would kind of ride away into the sunset, and then probably have a solid run and win by a minute or two. Um, but it didn't play out that way, and I think
No, Herring passed her and built a 15-second lead at the 3 mile mark, eh?
yeah, exactly, and so it really turned into a proper cat and mouse kind of fight. Um, And then you had the quick runners, so Danielle Lewis and Tamara coming back and really putting pressure on the back end of the race. So I think it was one of those races where, you know, even though there was a tussle, them collectively couldn't let up, because if they had slowed up even a little bit, Danielle Lewis starts to come back into the race then. So yeah, no, it's super competitive. I think it's also interesting to see how strong what's that? Is it Lisa Becarius is on the bike?
Yeah.
So she finished seventh in the end, but you could see on the bike how strong she was. But I do just love the that kind of dynamic of seeing people use their strengths and really come through the field.
Yeah, so do I. What I love about this race is the race for the win though, with Paula and Jackie trading places, Paula taking the lead towards the end and building. I mean, there was just 19 seconds separating them at the end. And I love it when
That's a good finish. Like in terms of like if you let up even a percent in that last kilometer, that's still a closable gap. And I think that's for an athlete to be part of it is exciting.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Exactly. And to be able to be passed, having had the lead, to
yeah,
not capitulate back down through the field, but to hang on, to be unable to retake that lead and but to hang on for second and a strong second place at that.
yeah,
Knowing that
no,
you've got people
completely.
behind you who are moving a lot faster because Jackie Herring ran a 1:20.14 compared to Paula's 1:20.11, but Danielle Lewis ran a 1:18.30 with Tamara Jewett running a 1:17 dead behind her. So you had some fast moving runners coming up behind as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It would have been
Yeah,
easy to lose that first place and just boom, heads gone.
yeah, and I think maybe that shows the because obviously Paula has is a super established athlete in the sense that she's had some massive success. She's also been racing the T100 circuit, which has been super high level as well over the last couple of years. And I think maybe that gives you that level of confidence in your performance and your ability that things can change until you cross the line. So maybe just that experience she's gained over the last couple of seasons is maybe just gave her that confidence to yeah, when she did get past, be able to give it straight back and take the win.
Bang on. Bang on. Now, men's race. What the fuck, man?
The lion won again.
Ah, I mean, yeah, fair play.
You're secretly really happy because I think
Ah,
every triathlon fan is super
yeah,
happy.
of course I mean, it's not even a secret. I think people who listen to this podcast would mistakenly think that there's, Lionel's an interesting cat. His journey is unique. His approach to training and nutrition and coaching is unique. It's frustrating sometimes,
Yep.
but me and Tim make no bones about the fact that we love it when he wins. And my God, I'd love to see what happens if he ever won Kona or Nice, whichever he happened to win, because he
Yeah.
would he would fucking explode across the finish line in a
Rip the finish line off
rip the
just in
fabric of
two.
time and space apart, mate. I believe. Um, but no, yeah, Lionel Sanders took the win in 3:47.01 ahead of Rudy von Berg in 3:47.42 and Gustav Eden in third in 3:48.06. Good to see Gustav back on a podium, not quite where he was in the sport, but making progress. Christian Blumenfeld got a puncher, didn't he, on the bike, which was what took
Yep.
him out of the game. But he did break the run course record by a considerable
I
margin.
think the other notable person was Jake Birtwistle, who finished sixth, finished 2 minutes 25 down, but he had a 2 minute penalty on the bike.
Yeah, fair play.
So again, it's a race, and ultimately penalties and punches and everything come down into the field of play. But after watching that, you've got to be thinking, especially with Christian, like, oh, if Christian hadn't got a puncher, and it's also the same with Jake, which is like, oh crap, if he hadn't got that 2 minute penalty and he was up the
Yeah,
front
but
racing with
you play the
Lionel,
field, you play
oh
the field you're in. Shoulda,
yeah,
woulda, coulda, isn't it?
yeah, no, 100%,
The
100%.
results
I just think it
sheets
would
will forever reflect this. They won't have an asterisk next to them saying you got a punch,
no. It's
a
almost
puncher,
it's
sorry.
almost I just feel I feel let down as a fan of triathlon to almost like see almost if you throw all those people together, a few K to go. A bit like we said with Paula and Jackie,
Yeah.
the excitement builds when the depth that just gets deeper and deeper in that top like podium placing. So,
Totally. And, if Lionel's in the mix in a race like this and he's fighting for the win, that's where he
oh yeah,
goes to the depths of himself. And it would be really interesting to see Christian Blumenfeld, who didn't have a puncher, Jake Birtwistle didn't have a puncher, up there pushing each other and pushing someone like Lionel to go harder and faster. And to watch how that race could have ended would have been remarkable, but it ended as it did. But Christian Blumenfeld ran a 107.19 half marathon. How does that sound?
which is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, ridiculous. And I think someone commented to me being like, "Oh well, Oceanside is not a very fast run course." I was like, "Well, it kind of has to be because you ain't running 107 on a slow run course, are you?"
No.
So,
I mean, he finished 15th place, but it does demonstrate that he is in fairly good shape going into Ironman Texas. How does that feel?
yeah, and also I guess the it's quite funny watching the contrast as well because you also had a Patrick Lang who finished in 17th place, who only ran 114, which he'll be close to 230 in Texas on the marathon. So it's funny watching him run a 70.3 at marathon pace.
Yeah, I saw him put a post out. I haven't got it here. I'll paraphrase it, but he said he hadn't had the best of days. He said he was cold legs, dead legs, wasn't feeling great, just didn't have the day he wanted. So I don't think that 114 reflects what his half marathon PB would be. But
Oh no, no,
but
no!
yeah.
But I just think it's interesting to see someone who's an out and out, not an out and out, but who is a phenomenal Ironman athlete, but also a marathon runner. And then just, I don't think his history or his depth in the 70.3 has ever got anywhere near the level of his marathon running.
No, agreed.
So yeah, no, I just think it's interesting to see because I think there's a lot of athletes who will slow down a lot when they get to an Ironman marathon. And Patrick is always one of those people that just does not really slow down, which is very scary.
Or look like he's trying. He runs like he's on a Sunday jog as he goes
Oh yeah,
past you and taps you on the bum.
it's kind of frustratingly beautiful.
What about Lionel? I mean, we've seen him do well in Oceanside before. We've seen him win Oceanside before, and then we've seen him not have much of a year after that. Where do you think he goes from here?
Well, apparently not to Ironman Texas because he mentioned on his video that he was going to get a couple of long rides in, and then Ironman Texas is only a couple of weeks away, and then he's not on the start list.
No, no, no.
So I'm wondering if that's a mistake or if he was just trying to screw with everyone,
Yeah, who knows?
or I
Who
I had no
knows?
idea.
Who knows? I want to see him have a really solid year. I think the sport is better when you've got a Lionel Sanders who's firing and is in these races to be part of them and to be someone who is fighting for victories, fighting for podiums, and is there or
Oh yeah,
thereabouts.
yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, yeah, I think he just needs to kind of keep a level head. Like he shows he's in really good form now. It's like not trying to reinvent the wheel and just do what he knows keeps him fit and makes him go well, and just not get too well, try and stop himself from doing a 180
Yeah, yeah.
because that's what normally happens. something will not go 100% to plan, and then he'll all of a sudden decide he needs to, completely rip up and start again. And I think, yeah, he shows he can definitely get himself in very good shape. So just try and believe in that and commit to it.
Totally, totally. It's interesting. We'll see what happens next. The broadcast was fucking bollocks. I'm sorry, but I'm done with Ironman broadcasts. I can't have that many adverts thrust at me. I can't deal with, I don't know how else to put it, but it's very, very American, which isn't a
Yeah,
bad thing, but it is not something I particularly enjoy. The broadcast, it just feels relatively emotionless. Uh, we commented last week that they have a bit of a charisma problem in terms of enthusiasm, excitement, and it seemed their solution to that this time was to add Craig Alexander, and that doesn't do anything for me either. It
no.
just didn't. It just did. It doesn't. It doesn't light my fire the way they do it. Their commentary team is. I'm sure they're lovely people, and all power to them. But the it doesn't. What does it do for you, mate? I'm digging myself a hole here.
No, no, I completely understand your points and agree with a lot of them. I think from a standpoint of an athlete, what I tend to get frustrated most when I watch kind of the streams with Ironman is that um, when the commentators don't know who an athlete is. I've experienced it, doing races and people, leading swims, and for 45 minutes them mentioning, referring to me as that gentleman and stuff like that. And it's, you know, in a sport where we're trying to be professional and trying to increase our awareness to the public of who athletes are and all this sort of thing. Um,
And
Not
give those
necessarily
athletes exposure because that's
exactly,
what their
yeah.
sponsors want.
Yeah, yeah, and exactly that. And I think sometimes their lack of knowledge or understanding, I think sometimes is a negative thing because it doesn't highlight and it doesn't give people opportunity. Like they're always going to see a Christian Blumenfeld and say that's Christian Blumenfeld. He doesn't need that exposure. But I think they referred to a few times on the bike. I saw a few clips where they were like, "Oh, I don't know who that quite is. I can't quite see the number." I'm like, "There's only less than 100 pro athletes in your race. You should do your homework, know what everyone's race kit looks like, know which bike everyone races in. It's not hard to know that Lana Sanders is on a Canyon and whatever, but do your homework on the people that you might not know. And that way, then when they flash up on the camera, you might say for 5 seconds, "Oh, I'm not sure who that is." But then you're like, "Oh, okay, it's a Trexby concept. They must be so and so." And it doesn't take a lot of homework, I don't think. And I think that's where my frustration lies in the broadcast is that I feel like they don't feel prepared
Yeah.
unless they know the person.
Yeah, I concur. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think we're on the same page. On the flip side of that, I thought the T100 Singapore broadcast was exceptional. I really enjoyed the commentary as well. I thought they did a great job, the team they had up there. I think Vicky Holland
Vicky's
adds
really
a
good, isn't
lot.
she? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
she's
I
really
think
good.
Jan Frodeno adds a lot. Um, Having not done my homework, I don't know the name of the other chap they put in there, I'm afraid, but he was
He's
very good.
he's the um
He's the TV guy, isn't he?
he's the TV guy, but the guy who helps to balance everything out, I think.
Yeah, he's what Iron Man are lacking, which is
Yeah.
that kind of anchor, almost the person who isn't the athlete, who isn't the expert, but anchors the broadcast, asks the questions, prompts responses, that kind of thing.
But also answers those basic questions that someone who doesn't fully understand what's going on can understand the sport a little bit better.
Yeah,
I think now sometimes you just need those like really like kind of almost like throwaway comments. Like if you and I heard them, we wouldn't really register into them. But if you're someone who's turned this race on for the first time in their life, he's probably given that information that they really need to understand what's going on.
yeah, totally. Uh, Women's race first.
Yeah, you go shoot. Have you got the results in front of you?
I have just closed the tab. Bear with me.
This is good,
Let's do
good
the men's race because
podcasting.
I've got that. Yeah, I know. I've got that tab open. The men's race was, I mean, it was a Hayden Wild domination, really, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, no,
I
I think
think. Go ahead.
no, I just think everyone kind of knew he was going to be good. So when I kind of saw what happened, I wasn't too surprised. I do think in a slightly more temperate condition, I do think there's athletes that can really give it to him. Like someone like Martin Van Riel, without doing an Ironman 7 days
What a
earlier.
legend, though. What a legend. Did you hear the noises he was making as he was running those last few kilometers?
I actually heard him on he did a is it Yella Gaines and Aaron Raw do a podcast now. And I heard he was on that podcast talking about the race, and he said he was channeling his inner Christian Blumenfeld.
Nice. Nice. I heard him as he crossed the finish line. He said, Jan Frodeno said it wasn't sensible, so I had to prove him wrong.
Yeah,
And I
I
enjoyed
like,
that
but
a
I
lot.
I like I like that athlete mentality of like you say I can't do something, fuck you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Hayden looked comfortable at at the front of the race. I loved the Rico Bogan up there with him to begin with, but obviously couldn't hold on, capitulated down through the field. But I think Rico, he's always there to animate the races and he makes them interesting and exciting.
Oh
And
yeah.
one day he will be there to hang on. I know that. But Hayden just looked comfortable. He didn't look like he was struggling at any point. He even stopped and high-fived a couple of young fans who were holding signs up. And then when he crossed the line, he had a bit of water poured on him, and then he just seemed obviously tired, but he didn't seem like he was blowing out of his arse, as opposed to Martin Van Riel, who came in third place behind Elia Bigier. Martin Van Riel looked like he was in a world of pain having done that Ironman.
And you'd be surprised if he didn't. If he looked fresh as a daisy, you'd be like,
Yeah, yeah.
so
But
no.
impressive though, isn't it? I mean, finishing on the podium just after doing Ironman South Africa, having stomach issues, coming second. I mean, a really, really impressive result from him.
And I think it's probably a testament to, or not even a testament, but it's kind of maybe a warning shot to a lot of people that when he goes into one of these races and focuses on it, which he's going to do in the middle of the season,
Yeah.
um, I personally want to see, I don't want to see Hayden win every race he turns up to.
No,
I
you want
want
to,
to
yeah,
see,
as a fan
I
of the
want to
sport,
see
you
a
want to see,
tussle,
yeah, you want to see people fighting it out.
and I want to get to, is it Qatar's going to be the grand final at the end of the year? I want to get to the grand final and actually the series not be decided.
Yeah, oh yeah, you want a four, three, two, three, four-way race into that grand final
Oh
to
yeah,
try and find out who's going to be the world champion. And hopefully
and I
that's what we'll
think
get.
I don't think we can take too much away from the out and out positions and race this weekend because I think Singapore it's a completely different beast compared to the rest of the races they're going to be doing. So I think it's cool to see Hayden, running hot. It's good to see like obviously Leo coming second, Martin getting on the podium. People like Yuri having a good race coming in fourth.
Good to see, and he'll
Um,
be able to remember this finish, like they keep saying on the broadcast, as opposed to last time around where he blacked out about a kilometer before the end, I think.
That is very true. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of athletes who finished a little bit further down on the list. So, but I think Rico Bogan, I know he's going to be there or thereabouts in some of these big races. So, yeah, I'm excited to see the next one. I'm not actually sure what race is next.
Oof. Answer that in a second. But
I think it.
Gregory Barnaby as well, winner of the Ironman Pro Series, um, finishing in fifth place. I thought that was quite impressive.
Yeah, and I guess a good kind of statement to show that he's taken the T100 series really seriously. And I think when someone jumps in from being like an Ironman specialist, you want them to really invest into this series. And I think he definitely is going to.
Yeah, yeah. So the next race is Vancouver, Canada on the 13th, 15th of June. And then we go to London,
Nice.
then we go to the French Riviera, then we go to Lake Las Vegas, Dubai, and then Qatar for the grand final on the 11th to 13th of December. So it really is a season-long narrative, to reuse that regularly used phrase.
I think some of these races are going to be, yeah, there's going to be some fireworks. Definitely, definitely. So
Absolutely.
the ladies, have you got the
Women's
results up?
race. Yeah, the women's race. I've got that tab back open now, consummate professional that I am. I did it while you were talking, mate. Didn't even notice, did you? On the women's side of things,
So smooth.
Kate Waugh was the surprise winner in 3:45.18 ahead of Lisa Petrier and Lucy Charles-Barclay. I really enjoyed this race. I enjoyed probably more than I did the men's race. Um, I really enjoyed seeing someone like Jess Learmonth back in the mix. Being up right up
Yes.
there in the swim and then being at the front of that race on the bike, getting a distance with people, not quite being able to hold on the run because she had a calf. She's had been dealing with a calf issue, and I think it was a really hot day out there, and that might have got to her a little
What
bit.
is she? She said something on the bike as well when she was leading. She said something along the lines of she was cooked, there was something. There was a one-liner that I definitely it
Yeah,
tickled me.
she said she had the motorbike was riding next to her, and she said, It's hot. I can
Yeah, that's the
feel the
one.
heat of the bike." But it was Kate Waugh that really was the standout performance of the day. Um, leading T2, Jess Learmonth looked like she was really struggling, but Kate just glided through to
And
transition
just
and
took
into the
off.
lead
Yeah,
and took off and never really looked to be under any pressure or in trouble.
I think they said it was the biggest winning margin in any T100 race ever, which is when you think of Taylor Knibb racing a lot of these races last year or the last couple of years. Um, that's pretty incredible
It really is. It really is.
just to think about, really.
And to rock up and it's your first T100 race and to not be
Yeah.
overawed by that, but to be able to have the confidence and composure to be able to go into T2 having had a strong bike and just run away from it. I thought that was, yeah, really quite remarkable. And I think that we've got some great things to come from her now. Everybody on the broadcast and pundits afterwards are saying, it's the Nib Kate rivalry now. But I think we've got to be careful with our expectations and see how things go. I think let her enjoy this victory, soak it up, and then it'll be interesting to see how things develop in the next race.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like as fans, we want to see like not that we want not that we're wishing for Taylor's downfall, but we are wishing for athletes to step up their game to bring us entertainment. And I think you watch Kate's performance at the weekend and you're thinking she potentially could be someone who could really, take the race to Taylor.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's exciting to see. But again, Singapore is its own same thing as the men's race. It's its own race in terms of the conditions, the uniqueness to it. Like we need to see her tackle a different race in a different climate, in a different condition, and we'll get a much better idea then of, you know, the next opportunity might be a head-to-head with Taylor, or we might be almost waiting for that anticipation down the track a little bit more, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, totally. And someone like Jess Learmonth coming back into having had some time off, coming back into races like this, she's got amazing swim speed, so she's going to be at the front of the race. She's got great bike power. So you're starting to see ingredients come together where you're starting to see groups form that could challenge Taylor Knibb's total dominance on that bike and put people in a position where they're able to run with her at the front and challenge her for victories.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's going to help play into like a Lucy Charles Barkley's race tactic as well. So I think I saw something about Lucy Charles saying she was slightly under the weather on race day, um, down with some sort of cold or something similar to that. So a fully fit and fighting Lucy with Jess, with Kate, it could be a very dynamic swim bike.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Really could. It really could. I think there's exciting future ahead for the women's side of the T100 and the men's. But in this particular weekend, I much more enjoyed the women's race,
Oh yeah,
despite
for sure.
loving seeing Hayden.
Is there anything we can take from Ash being a little bit down in sixth? Or do you just think that's first race of the year and maybe she's trying to build into the season more?
Yeah, I would say so. Well, I mean, you're not going to win every race you're in, are you?
No, no, 100%.
And I think she just had one of those days. I'm trying to find. I did see she put a comment out. What did she say? She had a
Because
decent
you
swim,
know,
but overall a shocking day for me yesterday. I had absolutely nothing on that bike and run. I'm sad that I didn't feel myself out there, especially in a race where I can usually thrive. The roller coaster of sport and racing is brutal. Thankfully, I have plenty of time to rest, reset, and get ready for the next one. Congratulations to all the women who got through that one, especially Kate Waugh, who had an amazing win. Yeah, I mean, that's a fairly standard. I just didn't have my day, isn't it? You never know. As an athlete yourself, you know there are many, many metrics
yeah.
and factors that could have influenced that.
And this one is, and Singapore as a race is really tricky because you're also throwing in some really intense heat prep. So I know I saw Carl Smith, for example, got injured because of the heat prep. That's what he put it down to. So you don't know sometimes if athletes overdo the heat prep, and that might cause injury, illness, or it might just stump, like sort of just take a few percent off you in terms of what you can actually do on race day. And maybe it could just be something as simple as she just did a tiny bit too much heat prep. And that way she couldn't really get that performance out on race day. So it's a very fine line for sure.
How many hours a week are you spending in your little plastic greenhouse in your garden in Wales?
Oh, an hour a day. No, joking. I think I did 5 hours before I went to South Africa. And yeah, pending getting rid of this illness, I think I'll do at least a few before I go to Texas, but we'll see.
And how are your tomatoes coming on?
Oh, they're growing nicely.
Nice. That's about it from us, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. No, it was a very busy weekend of racing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. So, if people want to find you, mate, I know we mentioned your Instagram at the start. Where can people find you to find out more, follow you, and find out what you're up to?
Yeah, just Instagram's the best place. Andrew underscore H underscore T. I'm pretty active. I reply to every message I get. So if you ever want to connect or chat, just drop me a message. And hopefully you find what I post somewhat interesting and not too boring.
And you do have a coaching business as well, do you not?
Yes, yeah, I coach RAS Endurance on Instagram. But again, if you're in the market for a coach and you want to have a chat, just drop me a message and we can do that.
Cool, cool. And thanks for listening. If you want to support the show, jump on at patreon.com/talking triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, he's at T414 on Instagram. I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram. We are also on Instagram as at Talking Triathlon. We're no longer on Twitter because it sucks. You can join the Patreon group, get monthly access to the bonus episode and social group, and we'll put you in the WhatsApp group, which is forever interesting and engaging. And if any of you've got any comments or you want to engage with us at all, the quickest way to do that is on the YouTube set comments section where we see those and we comment and reply and like and all that stuff. So if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Cheerio.
Cheers. Bye.